Well, Sam is attacked by Son of Buttle when Dream Girl, Jill, pokes her head in. Sam goes chasing after her, but his ride is trashed. After Daughter of Buttle, still waiting for her father to come home, gives him Jill's name, Sam heads back to work, the check and the Buttles firmly forgotten. Once there, he begins trying to track down more information on Jill, but gets nowhere. He realizes he could get higher access if he worked in information retrieval, and to his department boss's dread, immediately expresses his intention to get the transfer. Back again in his dreamscape, Sam finds Dream Jill, caged and chained, being dragged by freaky baby doll-faced creatures. Back in real life, his apartment has been trashed by the repairmen who, in trying to figure out why Sam's heating works, find Tuttle's handiwork and head off, the apartment still gutted. Back once again in the dream, Sam engages a giant elusive circuit samurai in combat. He defeats it using its own spear, but loses his wings in the process. And under the mask, his own face.
Yeah, Yoda's waiting just outside.
This dream is interrupted by a shrill singing telegram inviting him to a party celebrating his mother's plastic surgery, which he recognizes as an opportunity to talk his way into information retrieval. The long and short of this section is that, yes, he talks to the big boss and gets a transfer. Most of this sequence is really dedicated to following up on previously established characters. Sam's old friend Jack treats his wife like an accessory, Sam's mother's surgery went well and she's getting lusted after by partygoers, Sam's mother's friend's alternative surgery went poorly but she's self-destructively optimistic. My favorite part comes when Sam is sat down with Sam's mother's friend's daughter, who they have been trying to fix him up with.
And, well, I just don't want him to be under any false impressions.
It's all right. I don't like you either.
I like that because not only is it funny, but it does go along with Gilliam's theme of undermining Sam as the protagonist. Hero's parents try to set up Hero with boorish suitor. Hero is disinterested. Pretty one-sided, except here, the boorish suitor finds the hero just as unlikable and unpleasant as he finds her. I like that.
Well, the next day shows up to his new job, where things feel a bit different. Also, even though he gets his own office, he has to share a desk. And a poster. After some back and forth with his creepy, possessive coworker, and yet another dream sequence wherein Dream Sam is held back from escape by a representation of the helpless old boss he left behind without a second thought, real Sam manages to get more information on Jill. He goes off to get Jill's file and ends up in the information retrieval section of information retrieval. And what does information retrieval mean? Advanced interrogation. At least it's not torture. Anyway, turns out this is Jack's prestigious high-paying job, one he seems to suffer psychologically for. His daughter is hanging out, mostly ignored, in his office, and you get the idea that his family serves more just to provide him a sense of normalcy. Thank you, President Harding, for such a useful word. After discovering that it was Jack who retrieved Buttle to death, and knowing that they have the same treatment planned for her as a terrorism suspect, Sam takes Jill's file with a promise to bring her in. Sam spots her in the lobby, still trying to get information on Buttle. He rushes to get her before security can, and after getting into some trouble with them himself, manages to get her out of the building. Sam proceeds to use reassurances, bargaining, and threats to get Jill to just trust him and GTFO with him in her truck. There he reveals that he's been dreaming about her and loves her. Good for him. Most movie romances have the characters beating around the bush, when being honest and straightforward really is the better...
Alright, so there's something to be said for subtlety.
Well, anyway, he doesn't die, and Jill seems to find that endearing, so off they go. Sam is trying to impress upon her the danger she's in as a suspected terrorist, but she doesn't even trust his sanity, much less his intentions. He gets his own suspicions when she picks up a heavy, anonymous package she plans to deliver to an undisclosed location. Driving with a wanted woman carrying what is probably a bomb, he panics when they come up to a roadblock and forces her to smash through it, leading to a car chase through cramped city streets. Fortunately, a bit of clever flailing takes care of their pursuers and... yeah. This, to me, is the point where Sam's character journey kinda reaches its climax. See, Sam and Jill are presented as two very different characters. Sam didn't really care about anything. He was fine with his job and his friends, he was just as selfish and unaffected by the suffering of others as any of the background characters, as seen in his oblivious treatment of the Buttle family and other instances. Meanwhile, from the beginning, we've seen Jill working tirelessly, sacrificing time and more to try and get information about Buttle for her neighbor. Sam becomes aware of Jill and he suddenly starts caring about something. Finding her, meeting her, keeping her safe. But even then, he comes across as selfish and callous even as he pursues these theoretically heroic goals. He quickly abandons his rather helpless boss when getting that transfer suited his purposes, and he didn't seem to place any importance on the job when he got it. He pretty much forgot about the Buttles the moment Jill showed her face. He only began to show curiosity and horror towards information retrieval's methods when he was able to compare Buttles' fate to Jill's. And even here, at the triumphant climax of the adrenaline-soaked car chase, there is a focus on the human lives Sam's actions have cost. He doesn't even care that Jill might be a terrorist until the next scene, where the two are themselves caught in a blast, at which point, having been personally affected, he's quick to turn on her.
Terry Gilliam has, through subtle and not-so-subtle means, carefully crafted what I would like to call an anti-hero, someone who fits all the specifications of a hero without actually being one. The film presents what Sam does and why he does it from just a slightly different angle, and that changes everything. I guess you could say that Sam's story is him going from a non-entity to a hero to a person.
But back to the movie. It turns out Jill's bomb was just a bribe she was going to deliver to try and get info on Buttle. As she and Sam are now helping the injured, where in a previous scene he was happy to ignore the carnage, a bunch of jackbooted thugs show up and start making arrests. Sam wakes up in a transport, Jill nowhere to be found. Back at work, everything is starting to catch up with Sam, and even Jack makes it clear he doesn't want anything to do with him until things get sorted out. And after basically trashing his workplace, he heads back home to find his apartment taken over by the repairmen and himself evicted. Things start looking up when Harry Tuttle again shows up, this time apparently just to deliver some septic justice to Sam's tormentors. Jill follows close behind, having escaped the authorities. She is apparently sweet on Sam at this point, and Sam takes her to his mother's apartment to hide out, while the latter stays at the plastic surgeon's over the holidays. Once there, Sam has an idea how to get the authorities off Jill's back and heads back into work. He sneaks into the big boss's office and starts to work on his Supreme Level Access computer. Back at Mom's, and Jill is trying on her clothes and wigs, which isn't as upsetting and confusing as it has the potential to be for Sam. He gives her the good news. She's dead, as far as the system knows, and now no one will bother her. They celebrate the old-fashioned way, and soon we find that Dream Sam and Jill are back in the clear blue sky. And then in the real world, the jackbooted thugs crash in and take Sam away, the authorities' usual inflexibility and inefficiency deserting him when he needed it the most. After a lengthy and somewhat surreal processing, and after finding out from the big boss that Jill died while resisting arrest, twice apparently, Sam is preparing to have his information retrieved. Jack, in a freaky baby mask, shows up to get to work on Sam.
Incidentally, this image, it's a still from the movie that I've seen plenty of times for years and years. I've been aware of it for a long time, and yet up till now, I actually thought it was like a album cover for an alternative metal band or something, so, yeah. Anyway, what happens from here, it gets complicated, it gets surreal, it gets symbolic, and I don't actually want to spoil it for you. So I'll just sum up the end of the movie by saying that everyone lives happily ever after. And there's nothing that happens in the last couple of minutes that kind of makes you want to die inside.
So, the movie. Let's start with this. I still didn't enjoy it. It had all the things I hate about Gilliam's other films, and it affected me in the same way. And yet, I am glad I saw it. Moreover, I'm glad that rather than just watching it and letting it wash over me, this time I took the time to see one of his movies. Terry Gilliam is a bit of a genius, I can't deny it. There's more to talk about in this film than I can really explore in a reasonable time. Beyond that, though, I think I've come to understand why I don't enjoy the experience his movies provide. He gives them a claustrophobic feel, with characters swept along by chaotic inevitabilities. His stuff strikes at the very heart of my anxieties and fears about the world around me and my place in it.
So I think that's why I don't like Terry Gilliam's films. He's a kindred spirit, it's just that he prefers to take those things that I tend to file away from inside myself and turn them into feature films. Can't really argue with that kind of crazy. That being said, Brothers Grimm still sucks. Well, that completes my look at Brazil. This has been Victor with The Junkyard. Thanks for watching, and have a good day. Have all the good days. Thought I'd cap this all off by saying thanks. Thank you to my viewers and subs. You guys have been great. We have laughed and we have learned, and some of you have called me fat and stupid, but I forgive you. Thank you to all my fellow YouTubers. It's been great working with you and seeing your input. And yeah, I'm sorry I haven't been in contact with as many of you as I have in the past. And thank you to the filmmakers. Those people who, with big budgets or small, took those little pieces of themselves and gave them to us. So, thank you, everyone.